სანამ დავიწყებთ, აი ყურადღება რომ მიაქციოთ თარგმანის მოსასმენად, როგორ უნდა გადახვიდეთ ქართულ ენაზე, ვისაც გსურთ რომ ქართულ ენაზე მოისმინოთ. Okay, I think we are ready to start. Hello, everyone, and greetings from sunny Arizona. It's early morning here. I know it's evening in Tbilisi. Thank you very much for joining us and being with us today. I'm Keti Chachkiani, and I represent Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College at Arizona State University. We are delighted to have this opportunity to host you virtually at this presentation today. The presentation is held as part of the USAID Educating the Future activity, which is implemented by Chemonics International in partnership with Arizona State University, the One World Network of Schools, and also the University of Georgia. Arizona State University is very excited to be part of the USAID Educating the Future activity and have its opportunity to work with the universities in Georgia to enhance teacher preparation and also education administration programs. As we've engaged in this collaboration with our Georgian colleagues, we've seen growing interest in how Arizona State University designs and organizes and implements its teacher preparation programs and also education administration programs. So to respond to this interest, together with the Chemonics team, we decided to start a series of presentations where we'll invite faculty and also administration representatives to speak about various aspects of these programs. And today is the first presentation in this series. And with this, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Abby Brown, Assistant Division Director for Undergraduate Pathways at Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College. Dr. Brown plays a crucial role in faculty, staffing, mentorship, also curriculum development. She is also in charge of facilitating and fostering partnerships with school districts. In addition to this, Dr. Brown is an clinical assistant professor, and she herself educates and teaches the future teachers here in Arizona and the US. And she teaches subjects in the area of educational technology, math education, and also educational policy. Today, Dr. Brown will talk about the mission and core values of teacher preparation programs, as well as its structure, curriculum, teaching and assessment methods. Also, Dr. Brown will explain the admission requirements for the applicants of teacher preparation programs. And I think it's also interesting to hear how Teachers College and the university recruit qualified candidates and what are the strategies they are using for recruiting qualified candidates to the program and to the teaching profession. Before I hand over to Dr. Brown, here are some quick housekeeping notes. First, depending on your language preference, you can decide and choose to listen to the presentation either in English or in Georgian. And for this, you have to use the globe button in the bottom right corner of the screen. And you'll be able to switch to Georgian or back to English, depending where you are now. And please note that irrespective of the language you choose, the slides for the presentation will be in the Georgian language. Our session is planned to last for an hour and a half. Dr. Brown's presentation will take a little less than an hour, leaving us with 30 minutes for questions and answers. Please note that to ask questions, you will need to use the chat function. Please send your questions there, and during the presentation, I and also our team in Tbilisi will be monitoring those questions you ask, and then towards the end of the presentation, we'll ask those questions on your behalf to Dr. Brown. Also, one more thing I wanted to mention is that in the chat, we have sent the registration link. In case you have not registered, please take like a few minutes to quickly register so that we have the information and you're able to receive future correspondence from us. Another thing I want to mention is that we will be recording this session, both the English language part and also the translation. And last but not least, I want to thank our Chemonics and ASU team in Tbilisi, Georgia, for helping this webinar to happen, and they are there sitting also and making sure that everything goes smooth, and I hope that everything does go smooth. And without further ado then, let me extend a warm welcome to Dr. Abby Brown and start our presentation. Dear Abby, thank you once again for being with us today and for your willingness to share your experience and knowledge and information about teacher preparation programs at ASU. And now then, the virtual floor is yours. Please, Abby.
Thank you so much, Ketty. My inclination is to say good morning, but that's not appropriate for most people on here. I just got all of my kids off to school, so it's early morning, but good evening to most of you. I'm very honored to be here and able to present information to you about our teachers prep programs at Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College at ASU. Next slide. So at Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, we truly believe that education is the world's most important profession. Without teachers, we wouldn't have any other professions. Who's going to teach people to become doctors and lawyers and engineers and all of the other professions that we have if we don't have teachers? Next slide. At ASU, our charter drives everything we do, all of the changes that we make, decisions that we make, programs that we add, classes that we offer. It's all driven by our charter. And yes, our charter states that we are a public research university, and that is very, very important. However, we also pride ourselves on the students that we include in our population rather than the students that we exclude. We believe everyone deserves to have access to higher education. And we also believe that we have a fundamental responsibility to better the communities that we serve, particularly those in our state, but also across the country. Next slide. At Mary Lou Fulton, we absolutely take that charter to heart. And then we also have our own mission, which is to create knowledge, to mobilize people, and then to take action to improve education. Education has tended to be in the United States one of those areas that just doesn't change, and it doesn't change very quickly when it does change. And we don't see a reason for that to be happening. We have the ability to create change in a system, and we believe that we have the obligation to do that. Next slide. So 3 things that our dean talks about all the time is that we really believe in the Teachers College, that our curriculum, our programs need to be accessible, personalized, and transformative. So as the university believes, we want everyone to be able to access our programs. We want them to be personalized to their interests. So if they want multiple certifications, then we want to provide a way for that to happen. And I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. And we also want it to be transformative, not just for the student going through our program, but for the children that they are going to go teach, and then for the field of education as a whole. We believe that we can transform the whole system by starting with our students and our programs. Next slide. So here are just some basic little snippets of information about who we are at the Teachers College. We do have a comprehensive system for supporting our students that is unique to our college. We have several different coaches, including, as you can see on the slide, a wellness coach, academic coaches, financial coach. We also have a career coach that helps students figure out exactly how to write their resume, how to get a job, what is an interview going to be like. We have over 40,000 graduates of our programs. We have award-winning faculty. We work with over 450 schools, and we have over 1,700 students out in those schools engaged in classrooms in our communities. We have a high student retention rate, which means they like to stay with us, which is great. We also have a large population of first-generation students in our undergraduate programs, meaning that they are the first students in their families to go to college. We do spend a lot of money on research, which is really important to being able to advance our profession. And then we have several students that are learning in next education workforce models, which means that they have teams of teachers that are in their classrooms with them. And then we also have a number of partnerships. Our national partnerships are listed there on the slide, but we also have many, many, many local partnerships with school districts around the state of Arizona as well. Next slide. As a teachers college, we're one university, but we do have several campuses. So we have our main campus in Tempe that is very large. We also have our West Valley campus, which is about 40 minutes away. We have a shuttle that runs between the campuses. The West Valley campus is much smaller. And then we also have what we call ASU Sync, which is a virtual campus with classes that are offered via Zoom, and they are synchronous. So they are at a certain time with a certain instructor for a certain period of time that students are expected to attend. We also do have a few online courses, but at the undergraduate level, we don't have any programs that are fully asynchronous online programs. Next slide, please. This is showing you our teacher prep student demographics. So I said earlier, we have many students who are first-time college students. And here you can see our populations and how they compare. So our undergraduate population is much larger than our graduate teacher prep programs. We also have many more students that choose to be on campus rather than taking coursework online or via Sync. Most of our students are also residents of the state of Arizona, but we do have a large population of students that do not live in Arizona. Our population is also largely female, which if you look at the teaching force in the United States over the last 100 years, that makes sense. We tend to be a very female-dominated profession. We also have 45% of our students that are minority students, so that's very close to half, and we're really proud that we have a very diverse student body here. And most of our students also are full-time students, so they are taking a full load of classes every semester rather than taking just a few credit hours each semester, which takes longer for them to finish their degree. And you can see the breakdown of ethnicities there of our students and what populations are represented. Mostly white students for our undergraduate population, but we also have a very large population of Hispanic students. And then all of our other populations are quite lower in percentage if you take a look at those, but in line generally with our total population, including our graduate students. Next slide, please. All right, now I'm going to switch gears just a little bit and talk about our admissions and recruitment and how we go about getting these students into our programs, and also the important piece of keeping them with us to finish their degree. Next slide, please. So at ASU, we have university level requirements for admission into ASU. So our students need 4 years of math, 4 years of English, And those are non-ESL, meaning students learning English as a second language. They need 3 years of lab sciences, biology, chemistry, earth science, integrated science or physics, all count for those. They need 2 years of social sciences, so that has to include 1 year of American history. They need 2 years of a second language, so French, Spanish. Maybe there's high schools that offer Georgian, I'm not sure. Some second language, 2 years of that same language. And then they also need 1 year of fine arts, which would be like painting or dance or theater. Or they can do a year of career and technical education, which would be something that would be preparing them for a career. We have a lot of high schools that offer programs for students to start working towards being a dental assistant, perhaps, or a mechanic. And that would count as that 1 year of career and technical education. So all of our students coming to ASU need to meet these requirements through their high school education. So there's very specific courses they have to take in high school to be able to be admitted to ASU. That being said, as it says in our charter, we pride ourselves on who we include in our student body, not who we exclude. So if a student maybe doesn't have some of these competency requirements, it is possible for them to still be admitted to ASU through some different pathways. We are willing to take a look at each individual student and say, you know, maybe they don't have a year of fine arts for some reason. We can work with that student to evaluate what they do have and see if that will fit with what our requirements are at ASU. We also have some aptitude requirements for ASU. So you need to be in the top 25% of the high school graduating class. You need a 3.0 GPA, where a 4.0 is considered an A. You need to have a score of 22 on the ACT or 1120 on the SAT, and those are both national tests that students across the United States take for admission into college. If you are a non-resident, so you don't live in the state of Arizona, then the scores are a little bit higher for both of those. You can see it's a 24 or an 1180 if you don't reside in Arizona. Again, these are general requirements, and if a student is not meeting one of those requirements, we can certainly take a look at each individual student and work through that when it comes to them being admitted to the university. Next slide, please. So how do we at Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College gain students for our undergraduate programs? So we start with leads, and this is a large population of students. These could be any student that we've ever spoken to or that has received information about the Teachers College in some way. This typically happens through our admission services and then our online presence. So we have a comprehensive website. This would include anyone who's ever gone to our website and clicked on undergraduate teacher prep as a possibility for them. This is a large pool of students. From there, we kind of narrow down to prospects. So how many of those leads that we have are really actually interested in undergraduate Teachers College programs? From there, we can narrow it down to applicants. And this is where we bring in our recruiting team. So from those prospects, our recruiting team starts reaching out and then hopefully getting many of those prospects to actually fill out the application to be admitted to the university. Once they've applied, then our admissions and advising teams become involved, and they help those students that have applied understand if they've been admitted, if they haven't been admitted, what their deficiencies might be and how they might be able to make those up and reapply and then be admitted, what admission means, what the cost of school is going to be, what their classes might look like, etc. And then once they're admitted, our advising team helps those students to actually be enrolled in classes. So we start with this large population of leads, and through all of these stages, fewer and fewer students actually get to the enrolled place. Once they're enrolled into their courses, then they have to actually start. So we will also take a look at how many students are attending class within those first couple of weeks of class, so that we can determine if anyone was enrolled and isn't actually attending and might need to be dropped from those classes. So it's a team effort. We all work together as a group to try to support our students once they've decided that they might want to apply, to get them through the application process, to get them admitted, and then to get them enrolled in classes. And our faculty can be very involved too in that enrollment piece. A lot of times advising comes to us for guidance, or we provide presentations to students and their families to let them know what it's actually like to be enrolled in our college. Next slide, please. So how do we get these students? We have all these leads and these prospects, but how do we get them? So our admission services team does calling campaigns where they're actually on the phone, calling students, calling schools, calling teachers that are out there that maybe they can come talk to their class. We do a lot of email campaigns, so we send out a lot of emails. If you go on our website and you click on, send me more information, you're going to get an email, probably many, many emails, asking you if you want more information, or if you want to talk to someone, or what we can do to help you get to the point where you'd like to apply to our college. We also do text campaigns. So again, on phone, we'll text. If we have phone numbers, we'll text out information and again, ask, how can we help? What support do you need? And then we hold a lot of events. Like I was mentioning before, we have a lot of events for parents, for students. Faculty are there, our advising teams are there, our admission teams are there to provide information and to answer questions. When it comes to the Teachers College, there is not a separate admission requirement for the Teachers College. Once you are admitted to ASU, you can choose to be a Teachers College student if that is the pathway that you want to take. So we do, within MLFTC, though, have our own recruitment. So we do go and do our own calling campaigns, email, text. Again, we hold a lot of events that are either in person or on Zoom. And we do have a couple of scholarships that really make it more affordable for students to attend ASU within the Teachers College. So we have the Murray and Clara Walker Scholarship. And then we also have the Arizona Teachers Academy Scholarship. The Arizona Teachers Academy Scholarship is money that's provided from the state of Arizona, and it is to any student that wants to become a teacher, and it covers their entire expenses for their undergraduate program. Books, classes, any fees that might be attached to any of those items are covered. The student is then required to teach in the state of Arizona equal to the amount of years that they received the scholarship. So if they are our student for 4 years and they've had Arizona Teachers Academy Scholarship for all 4 years, then they're required to teach in the state of Arizona in a classroom for 4 years after they graduate. If they don't do that, then that scholarship defaults into a loan and they have to pay the money back. So it's sort of a win-win situation. Students get a lot of money to support their education. And then as a state, we get students that are going to stay in the field of teaching for a certain amount of time. Next slide, please. Oh, you're already on it. Hold on. Okay, so how do we, as a Teachers College, support recruitment? We do several high school presentations. And again, this could be our advising team, it could be faculty, and we focus on those education classes. So here in the United States, we do have high schools that have career and technical education related to becoming a teacher. So there are students in high schools that already know they want to be a teacher, and there are programs for them within their high school to learn more about becoming a teacher. And we like to target those classes because we know those students are already interested. We also host many, many high school groups on campus, particularly those with a focus on education, but some that don't. There might be high school students that are interested in the sciences. Maybe they really like biology and they haven't thought about being a biology teacher before. So we host a lot of high school groups on campus to show them what our campus is like and what programming and education looks like. We also outreach to high school teachers very often, particularly those that have those education classes on their campuses, but then also the career counselors at the high schools. So our high schools here do have dedicated career counselors that help students navigate what career they want to have, what school they should go to outside of high school, or maybe a four-year degree is not for them. They really help them make those career decisions while they're in high school. We also do presentations to our community colleges. So in Arizona, our community colleges typically offer two-year degrees in a variety of areas. And then those students after those 2 years either enter the field of work or they transfer to an institute of higher education and complete their bachelor's degree. So we do get a lot of students that have gone through 2 years at the community college, and then they come to us for their final 2 years of teacher prep to become a teacher. We also outreach to the faculty at the community colleges. We work very closely with them so that the courses that they're teaching at the community college will prepare students to enter our programs when they're in that third year of their pathway. We also do outreach to our paraprofessionals that are working in school districts. So paraprofessionals are individuals that are working in classrooms. They do not have a degree. Some of them might have an associate's degree, which is a 2-year degree, but some of them might not. Typically, they have very low pay and they don't receive benefits because most of them do not work full-time. So we outreach to those individuals to see if they have interest in becoming a full-time teacher, having full-time teacher pay and health benefits, etc. And we've actually developed a specific program just for our paraprofessional population that I'll talk a little bit more about here in a minute. But that we've found that that's a large population that we were not necessarily reaching into before, and we have now, and we're finding a lot of those paraprofessionals really do want to get teaching degrees. We also do a lot of one-on-one meetings with our prospective students, typically with their parents, so that we can answer whatever questions they might have. And then we also have university-wide events that we attend. So Sun Devil Days, Transfer Days, we always have a presence as a teachers college at those university events as well. Next slide, please. So one thing I mentioned at the very beginning was that we want what we offer at the Teachers College to be personalized to our students. So a few years ago, we started the process of redesigning all of our undergraduate pathways. Previously, we had some pretty narrow pathways, meaning if you wanted to be an elementary teacher, there was one path that you could take to be an elementary teacher. If you wanted to teach secondary students, there was one path that you could take. And we realized that that wasn't working for many of our students. They needed more choice, they needed more flexibility, and we needed to be able to offer that to them. So now I'm going to go through with you all of our new pathways that we've created, as well as a lot of areas of specialization that we have begun offering for them as well. Next slide, please. So for our students that want to teach students that are in the age birth to 3rd grade, we offer an early childhood education bachelor's degree, and that certifies them in the state of Arizona for birth to 3rd grade. So these are our preschool teachers and very early elementary teachers. Next slide. Then we have students that want to teach kindergarten to 8th grade, so that elementary into upper elementary grade level band. And they have 2 options. They could take an elementary education bachelor's degree, which certifies them to teach kinder through 8th grade. Or they could choose elementary multilingual education, which means that they really want to focus on learners who are learning English as a second language, which in Arizona, we have a large population of students that are learning English as a second language. Next slide, please. Then for programs for students who want to teach secondary, so 6th through 12th grade, we have a secondary education generalist degree, or they could take a secondary education degree in any of those subjects listed. So English, math, biological sciences, or history. So they can specialize or they can do a generalist degree. And with our secondary education degrees, we offer the generalist degree through our college. But then if you're specializing in a content area, you can take those courses through one of our other colleges. So for example, the college that offers science classes, you would take many of your classes through that college, and then just the classes about how to teach that science would be through the Teachers College. Next slide, please. We also have a degree for students who want to teach students with special needs. And here in Arizona, that certifies them for kinder through 12th grade. So all of the years of school. And that can be in special education in general, but then we also have a really specialized program, which is for students with visual impairment. So students who might be blind or partially blind, we have a separate program just for them. And right now that program is very, very small, but we work very closely with the Foundation for Blind Children that's local to us here in Phoenix. And we have, I think, about 15 students in that program right now who want to teach students with visual impairments when they're done with their college. Next slide, please. We also have another degree that will certify students to teach kinder through 12th grade, and that is physical education. So this would be PE classes, we call them, where they're learning how to play different sports, the rules of different sports, how to stay fit, how to be active, how to eat healthy. And again, that is kinder through 12th grade certification for students that choose that degree. And that has been one of our smaller degrees, but it is growing quickly over the last couple of years. Next slide, please. We also have an educational studies bachelor's degree, and this degree is primarily online and it does not lead to teacher certification. So it's for someone who might want to work in a nonprofit or environmental education, personal health, someone who doesn't want to be a classroom teacher, but wants to do something in the field of education. Next slide, please. So as part of making all of this personalized for our students, we realized that there are students that want to do more than one thing. So they want to be able to teach early childhood, but they also want elementary certification. So we've been able to add on those certificates to all of our degree programs. So you can see that top list is all of the certificates that you can add on. So if you're, say, an elementary education major, you could add on a certificate for any of these other areas, and then you would be certified in 2 areas when you're done with our program. You could also choose an interest area specialization, which is the list on the bottom. Those do not lead to certification, but they allow you to be able to take classes related to an interest area that can help you be more marketable when you go to find a job. So for example, if you're getting an elementary education degree, but you're really interested in teaching math in the middle grades, you could add that specialization on. And then when you're out there applying for jobs and interviewing, you can show that you've taken those classes and that you have a specialization in that area, even though it doesn't lead to a certification. Next slide, please. So I mentioned previously that we have this population of paraprofessionals that we realized might actually want to become teachers, but they haven't been able to do so primarily because they don't have the time because they're working, and they don't have the money because as a paraprofessional, they don't have a very high salary. So we put together a program called ASU Teaching Fellows. This is an alternative pathway for undergraduate students to earn a bachelor's degree from us. They also earn teacher certification in either special ed or elementary education. It's based in their school district, so they continue working in their job as a paraprofessional throughout the program. Their assignments are based on their classroom experiences. So they're already out in classrooms working. So their assignments for their coursework are related to that work that they're doing. It's flexible. Their classes are taught via sync, so they don't have to come to campus. And it provides them the time that they need to still have time for their families when they're done working at their paraprofessional job every day. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, their classes are taken through Zoom 1 day a week. They also have 1 day a month where they do come to campus and participate in a professional learning community with other paraprofessionals that are in the program. Everything they do in the program is job embedded. Their assignments, their internship hours, their student teaching hours, those are all embedded in the work that they're already doing. To start this program, they do need to have an associate's degree or about 60 credit hours of coursework. They need a minimum of a 2.25 GPA. They are eligible for that Arizona Teachers Academy scholarship, which means that it pays for their school. So they're able to keep their job, keep making money without having to spend a lot of money on their school. They do have to already be in a paraprofessional role for at least 18 hours a week. And that placement has to be in the same area where they want to be certified. So if they're in an elementary education program, they need to be in an elementary classroom. And they take about 16 to 18 credit hours a semester. But again, it's all job embedded, so it looks very different than our traditional program. And we've just started this program in this last year, and we already have almost 90 students that have gone through the first year of the program already. Next slide, please. This slide just gives you a general idea of about how many students we have in each of these pathways. So early childhood is a smaller program. Elementary education is our largest by far. We do have a lot of students that add on, if their elementary education is their main pathway, they'll add on early childhood or special education. Our elementary multilingual education program is quite small. As I said, our physical education program is small as well, but growing in the last couple of years quite a bit. Secondary education is our second largest program. And then we have special education. Special education VI is that visual impairment program that I mentioned that has 15 students. And then we do have an option called Education Exploratory. And there's only 16 students in that right now because it is only for freshmen. So if you come to us your first year and you're just not sure, you think you want to be a teacher or go into education, but you're just not sure if elementary is right for you or secondary or special education, you can do what's called Education Exploratory, and you take our classes, and through that process, you decide, okay, I think elementary education is what's on my path, or, oh, I think special education is right for me. So it gives you some time as a first-year student to kind of navigate the world of education and our programs and decide what's going to be best for you to finish out the rest of your education. Next slide, please. So when it comes to our professional experiences, here we are talking about time that our students in the Teachers College are spending out in classrooms. So they have 3 semesters of a part-time internship, and it depends on the semester. It's anywhere from 45 to 60 hours. They also do 1 semester of full-time student teaching. So they are in a classroom from the time the teacher gets there in the morning until the time the teacher leaves in the afternoon, all day, every day for 1 semester. We feel that this prepares our students for certification when they graduate. The state also requires a certain number of days and hours in classroom settings. They're able to learn from teachers out in the field that are experienced, and they can apply their coursework as well. We also have a team that is dedicated to supporting them out in those internships and student teaching experiences. Next slide, please. So here's an example of sort of what this looks like year by year. So freshman year is their first year. They have university requirements that they have to fulfill in areas like math and English and science. There are some very general classes that they take that are not Teachers College. And then they do have a couple of classes each semester that year that they take with Teachers College faculty. In their second year as a sophomore, there are a few more university requirements that they have to meet, again, in math, science, English, social sciences. They also have some Teachers College classes. And in that sophomore year, we've actually added in an earlier internship experience that did not used to exist. So starting this year, our students in their sophomore year are taking two classes, TEL 270 and 271. And the requirement for both of those courses is 20 hours of field work. So they are out in a classroom for 20 hours over the course of the semester. And really, they're just sort of observing, looking at what the job of a teacher is like, and then being able to come back and discuss that with their classmates and their faculty member. Then their junior year, they are taking all Teachers College classes related to their major. They don't have any more university requirements to meet, and they are doing those internship experiences where they're more involved in the classroom. They're not just sitting and observing anymore. They're really interacting with students, maybe leading some small groups, doing some lesson planning, reflecting with the teacher that they're working with, etc. And then their senior year, first semester, they do another internship with an increased amount of hours. And then that second semester, they are doing that full-time student teaching residency. Next slide, please. So as we redesigned all of these programs and these pathways that we have, we developed some sets of courses that would be common amongst most of our majors, and then some that would differ depending on which major you had chosen. So our general studies classes in that sort of pale yellow color are classes that the university requires. So they are not Teachers College classes. They have classes to pick from all different colleges across the university, and they get to pick which of those classes they take. But there are certain requirements about which areas those classes are in. Then we have our foundations classes, and those are Teachers College classes that every single Teachers College major takes, no matter what pathway they want to be on. So if you're elementary or secondary or special education, you're taking all the same classes for foundations. And we feel these classes really provide a solid foundation for the knowledge that a teacher needs. Next, we have our pedagogical core. And these are classes, again, that everyone takes that may be differentiated to their major, but again, are solid to the foundation of being a teacher. So things like classroom management, lesson planning, assessment. Then we have our professional core, which is in orange, and those classes are specific to that major. So for example, for special education, you're going to need several special education classes. For elementary, you're going to need elementary math and elementary reading and elementary writing. Then we also have specialization courses that will be in gray, and that is those extra certificates or specialization areas that they can add on to their pathway. So they're very much like electives. And then in sort of a pink color, we have our professional experiences, which is where they are actually out in the field doing those internship or student teaching experiences. Next slide, please. So here's an example of what all of that looks like for our elementary education majors. So you can see in the light yellow, the general studies university requirements. For some of those, we do make recommendations of classes they should take that we feel would be good for teachers. Then you can see our foundations classes in the green color, and the general studies and the foundations classes will be the same for every single one of our Teachers College undergraduate students. The pedagogical core, which is in blue, will also be exactly the same for every single one of our majors for Teachers College. The professional core that's in orange, those are the ones that vary depending on which pathway you're taking. So this is elementary education, and they have specific classes they have to take to be certified in elementary education. And then again, the gray is our certificate or personalized area, whatever a student chooses to take. And then the pink is that student teaching there at the end. One thing I do want to point out is these bright yellow classes. This is a new development in our major maps. And these classes are clinically embedded. So rather than having a field experience that's outside of the content, we have taken that field experience and put it into a content course. So for example, when these elementary education students take EED 412, which is math in elementary schools, they'll be out in a school setting doing math lessons, etc., while taking that class, so that the content they're learning in that class relates to what they're doing in the field and vice versa. Next slide, please. Here is our BA in special education. So you'll see it looks very similar to the elementary education map, but those classes that are in orange are very different. So rather than being elementary classes, they're special education classes. Also, one thing that's slightly different on this one is some of these classes have a red font, and all that means is for our advising team that those classes could be taken in an earlier semester if a student needs to do that. Next slide, please. This is our BA in secondary education. Again, you'll see it looks very, very similar to the other two. However, the classes in orange are very different. Since it is secondary, they do need that secondary content. So that's where they would be taking classes with other colleges. So they'd be taking chemistry classes or high-level math classes or science classes or English classes. Next slide, please. This final major map just shows you what it would look like with a concentration in math. So this is also secondary education, but this is filled in with what classes they would take if their concentration was math. So you can see those orange classes, many of them start with the prefix MAT. Those are not classes that we offer through the Teachers College. Those are offered through a different college that offers mathematics courses. Next slide, please. All right, next I'm going to walk you through an example of a syllabus. It's actually mine that I'm teaching from this semester, and then some of our campus resources as well. Next slide. All of our syllabi have student learning outcomes that are aligned to various standards. So you can see here, our student learning outcomes are listed, and these were all decided on by faculty. And then we've taken those and aligned them to our program learning outcomes, which were also developed by our faculty. And then the in-task standards, which are national standards. ISTE standards, which are technology, national technology standards. SPA standards are related to individual content. So this is related, the class I'm teaching is an elementary education math class. So it's related to elementary national standards. And then we also have principled innovation, which is sort of a whole separate topic here at ASU. And there are practices associated with that we also align our learning outcomes to. Next slide, please. Within our syllabus, we also have a tentative course calendar. So here's just an example of 1 week. So this was a week where we met in class on February 6th and 8th. This was the topic that we were learning about that week in class. The readings that students were required to do for class that week. And then there was an assignment that was due the following week. So that was listed here. Sometimes there are not assignments that are necessarily associated with that week, so there's not an assignment listed there. Next slide, please. Here is an example of what an assignment looks like in the syllabus. So we have the assignment description. We have the student learning outcomes. It got cut off on this one, but there would be student learning outcomes listed there. There might be a program learning outcome listed. For this particular one, there wasn't one. And then it will tell you the due date and then how many points that assignment is worth. So this was actually a 3-part assignment that they do throughout the semester, with each part being equal to 20 points of their grade. Next slide, please. Here's an example of what our modules would look like in Canvas. So module 1's always kind of brief. It's the first one of the semester, but you can see module 2 here. There's an overview of what we're learning that week. There's an assignment that was due that week that they can click on. And then there's a couple of articles that they were responsible for reading that week. Next slide. Here's an example of what that module would look like if a student clicked into it. So here's the overview, the objectives that we want to meet during that module, and then the assignments. So there is an actual assignment, and then there are several readings that they need to do for that module. And a module typically is a week, but it doesn't have to be. So faculty are free to decide the amount of time that they want to devote to each module. Next slide, please. Here's an example of an assignment in Canvas. So this is what it looks like when a student clicks into it. You can see when it's due, how many points it is, how they can submit it, what file types are accepted, when it becomes available. That's sort of an arbitrary thing that gets put in there when the shell is developed. All of the directions for the assignment, as well as the rubric for how the assignment will be graded. So a student goes in, they see all of this, and then they click on Start Assignment if they are ready to submit their assignment for that. Next slide, please. So when it comes to our pedagogical approach with the Teachers College, I didn't feel like I could put slides in because we all have our own approach. We all have our own teaching style. However, very generally speaking, we teach very hands-on. We want to model for our students what they should be doing when they teach their own students someday out in the field. So we're constantly using, grouping structures and different ways for students to share out. We do not lecture. I think it would be very difficult to find a class in the Teachers College building where someone is just lecturing for the entire 75 minutes. We really try to model for our students what we expect them to do when they're out in the field. So maybe they're reading articles ahead of class so that we can talk about it in class. We do a lot of projects and presentations. We like our students to be up presenting information to their peers as much as possible so they can be comfortable leading a classroom and, being able to share information. We use a lot of manipulatives. So I teach several math classes, and we have large rooms full of different math manipulatives or science manipulatives. We use a lot of, chart paper, and we use the whiteboards a lot in class. Students are very, very active in our classes. We want them to be part of the process, not us as faculty being, the end all be all of knowledge that we are imparting to them. We really want them to be able to think critically and evaluate their own opinions and ideas so that they can go out and be a great teacher in their classroom someday. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to talk somewhat briefly about assessment and continuous improvement. Next slide. So we've created all of these new programs, and we've done what we felt was necessary to benefit our students, but how do we know that it's actually working? So we've instituted common assessments, which are 1 to 2 assessments per course that cannot be changed. So they're designed to measure students' mastery, and every instructor that teaches that class has to use those assessments without changing them. The reason for that is that we want to collect data. So we collect data on the back end about how students are doing on those common assessments. And then as faculty, if we decide, the data is not looking very good for this common assessment, what do we need to change? Then we'll change it, but we change it across the board. So then everyone teaching that class, again, uses the updated version of that common assessment. We also do end of program surveys. So students every semester fill out end of course surveys. So they provide us feedback about the course itself and then about the instructor. And then we also do end of program surveys, which is at the very end after they've done their student teaching to get feedback about the program as a whole. What worked, what didn't work, what difficulties did they have, what things were beneficial for them, so that we can always be taking a look back and saying, okay, here's something that we might need to update, or here's something that we might need to change based on data. Next slide, please. Here's an example of what one of those common assessments looks like. So this is an assignment. It's only worth 10 points. These don't have to be major assignments. They don't have to be sort of the end of the semester big project assignment. It's just something that's going to show us mastery for a specific learning outcome. So you'll see here on the right side of the slide, there's a rubric, and there are 2 areas for this that are worth 5 points, but then that one at the bottom is where we collect our data about the common assessment. It actually doesn't count in a student's grade. It's just saying whether or not they've met that learning outcome. That's really the data that we want. Did they meet the learning outcome or did they not? And that's what we take a look at as a faculty group. We'll sit down and say, okay, gosh, most of our students are meeting this learning outcome on this assessment, but most of them aren't on this assessment. So what do we need to change? Maybe that's not the right assessment. Maybe we need to use something else, or maybe we need to modify the assessment if it's not working. Next slide, please. So we've been doing these common assessments for this year. So it's relatively new data that we're collecting. It took us a while to find a system that would allow us to collect it the way that we wanted to. And it's been very eye-opening for all of us to sort of see this data from these common assessments. So we do have a new data dashboard that we have a group that manages, and that's been really beneficial for our faculty. Some of our faculty don't want to get into the weeds of looking, deep down into the data, and they want a visual of it. So that's been very helpful. It's been given us a good starting point to be able to talk about the data and what's working and what's not working and how we might need to change some things. We're going to continue to refine our common assessments and make sure that they are aligned to what we say that they are aligned to as we work through this. And then providing support for our instructors to be able to interpret the data that's in the dashboard. That's another key piece. And then as that dashboard continues to be used, we're going to continue to sort of look at how we can expand it and use it across more program areas as we are able to sort of refine what we're seeing with our data from those common assessments. And that is the end of my presentation. So I think we're on to Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Abby, for a very interesting presentation. That was, I think, very informative, and we do appreciate it. We do have a couple of questions, and I believe that now that the presentation is over, maybe the participants will also send more questions to us. But here is the first question. So as we all know, teacher shortage is a huge issue in general in all countries, and this is particularly true for certain areas. For example, in Georgia, I'm sure in the US, in other countries, teachers from STEM disciplines, physics, math, etc., the shortage in those areas are bigger. So does ASU have any specific strategies that target recruitment of future teachers in those areas, or does ASU have any discipline-specific scholarships or other benefits that may attract people to those disciplines? That's
Great
the
question.
first question. Yes.
Okay. So we do, going back to what I had mentioned about attending high school events and or having high schoolers come to campus, we do have STEM focused events that we will go to try to market our programs and or invite those organizations to our campus. And that's a huge reason behind why we have some of these specialization areas and being able to add on these certificates as we redid our programs, because there is a specialization in STEM. We do now have an elementary STEM class that we require our elementary ed majors to take. And then also some of these alternative pathways that we have, like the paraprofessionals pathway, were created out of this need to tap into more individuals that want to be teachers, because we do have a lack of teachers. It's a common problem, like you said, everywhere. And, we face it every single day here. So we are trying to get more creative in in the ways that we're reaching out to our high school students, and then also people that are already working in schools to get them into teaching careers.
Mhm. Great. Thank you very much. Then here is another question. I think maybe clarification from your side would be great. So you mentioned that you have secondary education generalist degree and also secondary education with some specialization in it. It can be English, math, biological sciences, history. So this is something different, like this differentiation for the Georgian context. So could you please explain better what would those graduates who graduate from the secondary education degree, like generalist degree, what do they end up teaching or doing at schools? Do they need to specialize in something else to be able to teach, or what is going to be their role with that generalist degree at schools?
That's a great question. So this is something that comes from our State Department. That's how they certify our secondary teachers. So for example, we have secondary education that's for, science, history, English, and math. Say a student wanted to teach Spanish in a high school. They would get their Spanish degree, and then they could add on that secondary education generalist piece so that they could be certified to teach that content area. So if they want to teach some content area other than science, history, English, math, then they could do the secondary generalist and have their content area in something other than that. Since we do have, we have a million different classes that are taught in high schools here, right? Maybe they want to teach auto mechanics in high school. And so they do the secondary generalist degree because they have the other coursework that they need for the content.
Okay. Thank you. Now, another question I see is about field experience, student field experiences. And I know that we're going to have a dedicated presentation to that. But the question was about those teachers who host ASU students at your partner schools. So you mentioned that your students at ASU, when they go to schools, they work with very experienced teachers. So the question is, how does ASU and Teachers College ensure that those teachers are experienced? Do you do some specific selection? Do you do prior training for them? How is it ensured that these are like the best qualified teachers from whom you would like your students to learn from?
Great question. So for internship experiences, so before student teaching, we actually place students through typically the HR department of a school district. So they seek out individuals that they know are going to be a strong mentor for our students, and or through the administration at the site, at the school level. And then for student teaching, our State Department actually has requirements about who can have a student teacher. So it has to be someone that's been teaching for 3 years, et cetera. And those typically, again, go through either the HR at the school district or the principal of the building to be able to assign those teachers a student teacher. So we make sure that there's actually a few different layers of accountability for that person to be able to be a mentor teacher and have that student teacher in their classroom. And we do trainings and webinars and all kinds of things prior to the start of a semester. And then we also offer support for our mentor teachers throughout the semester as well.
Thank you. Here is another question, and I think that comes from, as a background with these recent initiatives in Georgia that certain bachelor's level programs may end up being with the duration of 3 years instead of 4 years. This is how it is now. So what is the experience in the US and at ASU? How long does it usually take students to finish the program, or what is the, and I know you touched this, but if you could please elaborate more on this, what is the expected duration for completing a bachelor's level program at Teachers College at ASU?
So we build all of our bachelor's programs to be 8 semesters, which is 4 years.
Mhm.
Students could take some classes during the summer and complete that faster. Our Teaching Fellows program for paraprofessionals is only a 3-semester program. So they're actually done. They come to us with 2 years completed essentially, and then they have 3 more semesters. So theirs is overall a 3.5-year experience. One thing that we have happening here in Arizona, though, is that our students are able to take teaching positions while they're still a student. So our state has loosened their regulations with teaching a little bit because there is a shortage of teachers and they want people in classrooms. So our students are actually able to start working in schools earlier. But we're still finding that they're typically taking the 4 years, all 8 semesters of time, because it's a lot to be a teacher in a classroom and taking coursework on top of that.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you. And then I see one more question here, and I think that's about the assignments in the syllabus. So you mentioned that those tasks, assignment tasks, are not necessarily predetermined in the syllabus. So when the learning process takes place, and if you see that there is a need to change, the content or the nature of some assignments, like how free instructors are to do this, and then how this is reflected in the module or in the syllabus, if there is the room for this flexibility, and then how the instructor takes the decision about this, and does this need to be agreed with the head of the program or with the course designers? If you could please tell us a little bit more about this, how it works at ASU.
Of course. So for every class, there is someone called a course coordinator, and they're the person that sort of is in charge of the materials for that class, the Canvas dev shell and the syllabus. And every class has a syllabus that is completely laid out, assignments, points, everything. They also have a Canvas dev shell that matches up with that syllabus that has all of the assignments, resources, everything in it. So as an instructor, when I am assigned to teach a class, I'm given those materials. So I have access to that syllabus. I have access to the Canvas shell.
Mm-hmm.
As the instructor, I can change many, many things about that if I feel like in my professional judgment, that is what I need to do. So the common assessments, like I said, cannot be changed. Those have to remain. Any other assignments can be modified, deleted, replaced. Point totals can change. The thing that can't change is the textbook and the student learning outcomes. So we have to be able to say that all of the students leaving this course have learned these things. But how we go about teaching those things and assessing those things within the course beyond the common assessments is really up to us and our professional judgment about what our students need and how we want to get that information to them and know that they've learned it. So we have a lot of freedom, which I love.
In the instructional methods, but when it is about the main textbook or the learning outcomes or common assessment, that's what is designed at the program level.
Those things are locked down, but pretty much anything else we have freedom to adjust as we need.
Great. Then here is the question about the employment of your alumni. So once they graduate, how do you help them to get employed and to find the schools and to stay in the teaching profession? Because we also know that another common problem is that those students who graduate from teacher preparation programs, then, not many of them stay in the teaching profession. So what are some of the strategies that Teachers College at ASU is employing to ensure that your graduates go to schools and stay in the profession?
That is a really great question. So as I mentioned, we do have a career coach. So that person really helps our students with, like I said, their resume, interviewing, finding jobs, getting jobs. I think an area where we have more opportunity is how to keep them in those jobs. And I know that that's a struggle for schools worldwide, is keeping teachers in those jobs once they've gotten them. And I do think there's a lot of opportunity there for us to provide some more support to our teachers once they're out in classrooms. We do have a really strong alumni association that keeps in touch with our graduates as they're out there. But I do think there's opportunity for us to provide a different level of support if we have graduates that are out there in classrooms that might be struggling or might be thinking that, they don't want to stay. So that's something that I think we'll be spending more time trying to look into ways that we can do that. We've been very focused on how do we get them, through our programs and out there and into classrooms. And now we really need to look at how do we keep them there. We do have really strong partnerships with our school districts, and we are working with them on that as well, because clearly it's a problem for them. They don't want to be losing people. And so we're really trying to partner together and work on what we can do to help them keep their teachers from our end once they graduate.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to add that the other day I was walking out from my office, and in between of this Pain and Education building, I saw representatives from different school districts being there and promoting their schools and the benefits packages they were offering, and what job openings they had. It was really interesting to see how they were here to recruit probably they were more oriented at the seniors who will be graduating. So yeah, these are some of the nice practices, which I think that would be also good to use in Georgia. Another question here is about teacher certification, certificate programs, which ASU has. The participant wanted to know if the current acting teachers are registering for those courses, and if they are showing interest to take those short-term certificate programs that ASU offers.
Yeah, we do have teachers that do take those. It sort of varies depending on what their interests are and why they want to take them. But we do have teachers that do take those kind of shorter certificate programs.
Okay. So then the question is about state certification exams. So what happens once they graduate? Do they take certification exams? If you can tell us briefly how those certification exams look like and how you prepare your teachers, your student teachers, your graduates to perform successfully on those exams.
Yes, they do have exams they have to take if they're getting certified in Arizona. Every state is different. So if they're, taking their program here at ASU, but they live in California or Massachusetts, then they'll have different requirements. But in the state of Arizona, they have to take a professional knowledge test and a content knowledge test, and they have to pass those. We also have a literacy test upcoming for our elementary folks that they will have to pass as well. It's new. So they do have 2 tests they have to take. When they graduate from us, we give them what we call an institutional recommendation, which means that they've done everything they needed to do on our end to be a certified teacher. They've taken the coursework, they've done the practicum. We say they're ready to go. So then the State Department does not have to go through and do a course analysis of their program. But they do still have to take those tests. So we strongly encourage our students to take them while they're still with us. we have also just recently developed a lot of materials for our students to help with those tests. So study aids, guides, advice, things like that, a lot of materials to help them with those tests. It's going to benefit them if they can have those tests taken and passed before they graduate and are trying to get jobs. So we're doing everything we can to help prepare them for those tests. And we've actually been looking at the data of which tests they tend to not do so well on, and what we can do to help them be able to pass those tests. Because we don't want that to be a barrier to them getting out into classrooms.
Thank you. So I apologize because I'm also trying to read. So I think it was the question about exams. So for the certification exam, so you mentioned that there is one pedagogical exam, and
There's
then
a professional knowledge and then content knowledge.
And then content. So 2 exams. These are 2
Yes.
exams that they are taking. Okay. Great. I think these are all the questions what I've seen. Maybe we give another minute to our participants if they have more questions. I will also look through our chat. Yeah, I think for the most part, this is it. I want to let our participants know that we are recording this session. So soon, Chemonics team will post the recording at their page, and we use different social media sources so that you have access to this. Abby, thank you so much for a very interesting presentation. I'm sure that our attendees found it very useful. I'm sure they will have more questions after this presentation too, and I'm also sure that we'll have more opportunities for you and your colleagues to meet with them and to dive more in depth and talk about those important areas in teacher preparation. Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
have a great day and have a great evening, Georgia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Gemshito bevit, დიდი მადლობა, რომ ჩვენთან ერთად იყავით.